r/malicious compliance my cousin bullied me secretly, so I quit before bonus day. Hashtag chunk 1, the setup. I found out 3 weeks before bonus day. I'm sitting in the break room at 4:47 p.m. on a Wednesday, microwaving the sad desk lunch I packed that morning, Greek yogurt and granola that somehow tastes like cardboard, when I overhear my name. Not in a good way. The kind of way where people lower their voices and glance around to make sure no one's listening, which obviously means someone is listening, and that someone is me, standing behind the coffee machine pretending to search for sweetener packets. I swear Marcus didn't even write half of that presentation. Sarah from accounting is saying to someone I can't quite see around the corner. Derek basically handed it to him. You should have seen the emails on our chain. Derek was essentially ghostwriting the whole thing. My hands go cold. Derek is my cousin. Derek is the one who got me this job 7 months ago. Really? The other voice says. I think it's Jennifer from HR. I thought Marcus did stellar work on that project. That's what Derek wants everyone to think, Sarah says, and I can practically hear the eye roll in her voice. Honestly, I don't know if Marcus even knows what he's doing half the time. Derek's basically been carrying him. I stand there, my yogurt forgotten in the microwave as it beeps insistently. No one comes to retrieve it. The microwave beeps again. And again. It's the saddest, most pathetic sound in the world, and it matches exactly how I feel right now, abandoned, overheated, and slowly falling apart. I've been here 7 months. 7 months. And I thought things were going well. I thought I was doing well. Derek helped me through the entire interview process. My parents were so grateful when I landed this job out of college, grateful to Derek, specifically. My mom kept saying, thank God for Derek. He really came through for you. He'd shown up at my college graduation, given me a hug, and mentioned casually that his company was hiring recent grads. 2 weeks later, I had an interview. 4 weeks later, I had an offer. I should have known something was off when Derek insisted on introducing me to everyone on day 1. He kept his arm around my shoulders, literally presenting me to each department like he was showcasing a new piece of equipment. Everyone, this is my cousin Marcus. He's going to be joining our team. I'm going to help him get up to speed. I thought it was sweet. I thought it meant he had my back. Now, standing in the break room as my yogurt beeps its lonely song, I'm realizing that Derek's introduction was more like a label he'd stuck on my forehead, asterisk this is Marcus, the incompetent cousin I brought in. Don't expect much, asterisk. The microwave beeps one final time, and I grab my yogurt without really thinking about it. The container is hot enough to burn my fingers, which feels appropriate somehow. I spend the next 3 hours at my desk trying to remember every interaction with Derek from the past 7 months, and each memory suddenly feels poisoned. Like last month when Derek volunteered to help me with the Henderson account presentation. He'd come into my cubicle, looked at my draft, and said, you know what? Let me take this version and punch it up. You've got a lot on your plate. I remember feeling relieved. The presentation had gone over great. Derek had taken the lead in the meeting, walking everyone through the slides, cracking jokes, owning the room. I'd contributed a few points, but mostly I just sat there, smiling like an idiot, thinking wow, my cousin is so talented. He wasn't punching it up. He was punching me out. And the client follow-up email. The one everyone praised as so thorough and professional. I'd written that. Derek had forwarded it on his letterhead the next morning, with just a small note, following up on our discussion yesterday. How many times had he done this? How many pieces of work had I done that Derek had repackaged as his own while quietly telling people I wasn't capable? My chest starts feeling tight. Not quite panic attack tight, but close enough that I'm acutely aware of each breath I'm taking, and aware that I'm aware, which makes it worse. I close my laptop and stare at my desk, the desk Derek had helped me set up, the desk he'd walked me to on my first day, introducing me to everyone like he was showing off his charity work. I think about the conversation I had with Derek last week. He'd stopped by my cubicle around 6 p.m. when the office was emptying out, and he'd seemed genuinely concerned. Hey man, you okay? He'd asked, sitting on the edge of my desk like we were buddies. You seem a little stressed lately. I remember telling him I felt like people at work weren't responding well to me. I remember him patting my shoulder, actually patting my shoulder like I was a golden retriever, and saying, you're just new. Give it time. You'll grow into this role eventually. Eventually, like I was a project. Like I had so far to go before I'd be passably acceptable. I'm here for you, he'd added. Whatever you need, just ask. We're family. The thought makes me want to throw up. I drive home in silence, not even putting on music. My apartment is dark when I arrive. I don't turn on the lights. I just sit on my couch and pull up my company's benefits page on my phone, scrolling to the section about bonus distribution. December 20th, bonuses are distributed December 20th. I know what a bonus looks like at my level, approximately. It's not enough to live on, but it's enough to matter. It's enough that I've been planning to use it to pay off my car loan faster, maybe take a trip home for Christmas without feeling guilty about the expense. Derek's bonus will be significant. He's been here for 5 years. He's in a leadership position. And now he's spent the last 7 months making himself look even better by making me look worse. I sit in the dark for a long time, and something crystallizes inside me. Not rage, exactly, though there's definitely rage. It's more like clarity. The kind you feel right before you make a decision that changes everything. I pull out my laptop and start composing an email. Hashtag chunk 2, the investigation. I don't send the email that night. Instead, I close my laptop at 11:47 p.m. and just sit with it. The email is there, saved in drafts, subject line blank, body full of carefully crafted words about pursuing other opportunities and grateful for the chance to grow. It's professional. It's clean. It gives nothing away. But something stops me from hitting send. Maybe it's the voice in my head that sounds suspiciously like my mother, asking me if I'm sure, if I've thought this through, if I'm being rational or if I'm being emotional. Maybe it's the fact that I've only been at this job for 7 months and quitting abruptly would look bad on any future resume. Maybe it's just that I want to know exactly how deep Derek's betrayal goes before I blow everything up. So instead of sending the email, I spend the next 3 days doing something I'm not particularly proud of. I investigate my cousin. It starts small. I'm more attentive in meetings now, actually paying attention to who speaks up when my name comes up. I notice that whenever I mention something I've completed, there's a slight pause in a conversation, that microsecond hesitation that happens right before someone decides whether to take you seriously. And then, almost without fail, someone will reference Derek's input. Oh right, like Derek mentioned in that email. Or yeah, Derek was saying something about that. Except Derek wasn't saying things. I was saying things, and Derek was repeating them, and somehow in that repetition, the information became credible in a way it hadn't been when it came from me. I start keeping notes. Not in an obsessive way, or okay, maybe a little obsessive, but I tell myself it's for research purposes. I write down dates and times and specific conversations. I document the Henderson account, Derek's work, my presentation prep, the client follow-up email, mine, Derek's attribution, the quarterly report revision, mine, but Derek presented it to the director. I'm building a case, though I'm not entirely sure what case I'm building or who I'm building it for. On Friday, I do something I definitely feel bad about. I check Derek's emails. We have the same access level to the shared company server, and it's not exactly illegal for me to look at his sent folder. The company technically owns everything anyway, but it feels invasive in a way that makes my stomach twist. I tell myself I'm just looking for evidence, just trying to understand the full scope of what's happening. I tell myself that Derek forfeited the right to privacy when he decided to betray me. What I find is worse than I expected. There's an entire email chain from 3 months ago between Derek and Susan, our team lead. I'd worked on a small project for one of our mid-level clients, nothing major, just some analysis and recommendations. I'd been proud of it. It was solid work, competent and thorough. I'd emailed it to Derek asking for his feedback before I submitted it to Susan. Derek's response to Susan, sent the next day, is titled Marcus's Project, Minor Revisions Needed. Hey Susan, *, I wanted to give you a heads up that Marcus submitted his analysis on the Ridgewood account. It's got some decent bones, but there are some significant gaps in his methodology that I flagged. I'm going to walk him through the revision process, but I wanted you to be aware that this might need a few rounds of edits before it's client ready. I'm essentially doing a quality control check on everything he produces at this stage. He's still very much learning the ropes. *. My hands shake as I keep reading. Susan's response, *, thanks for catching that, Derek. Good call having him loop you in. And thanks for being so patient with him. I know bringing in family can be tricky. *. Derek's response, *, happy to do it. I feel responsible for him, honestly. I want to make sure he actually develops into someone competent before he's out there representing the company independently. *. I have to stop reading. I feel like I'm going to be sick. He feels responsible for me. Like I'm a problem he needs to manage. Like I'm a charity case he's taken on out of obligation to our family. I spend the rest of Friday in a daze, going through the motions of work without really being present. I smile at the right times, I respond to emails, I sit in meetings and pretend to take notes. But inside, I'm somewhere else entirely, in a dark place where everything I thought I'd built here is revealed to be an illusion. That night, I call my college roommate Jake, who now works at a different company across town. Dude, that's fucked up, Jake says after I give him the full breakdown. We're on FaceTime, and he's sitting in his apartment with a beer, which makes me immediately want a beer too, so I go to my fridge and grab one. Like, genuinely fucked up. Why would he do that? I don't know, I say, and I mean it. He got me the job. He convinced his company to hire me. Why would he then spend months making me look bad? Maybe he was worried you'd make him look bad. Jake suggests. Like, if you came in and immediately crushed it, maybe he was threatened. But I'm his cousin. And I'm 22. I just graduated college. Why would he feel threatened? Jake shrugs. He doesn't have an answer, and neither do I. What I do have is clarity about one thing: I can't stay here. Not because I can't handle the professional sabotage, but because every moment I spend in this office is a moment I'm around Derek, and I don't know if I trust myself not to do something I'll regret. Not something violent, don't get me wrong, I'm not having those kinds of thoughts, but something final. Something that will explode everything. I think about the bonus again. December 20th. That's 13 days away. And that's when the idea starts to form. It's not fully formed yet, not something I can articulate cleanly. It's more like the shadow of an idea, the outline of something that could work, if I'm clever enough and ruthless enough and willing to burn it all down. Derek thinks he's orchestrated this perfectly. He thinks I'm just another incompetent cousin he's generously taking under his wing. He thinks the bonus is coming, and everything's going to continue exactly as it has been. He doesn't know that I know. And that changes everything. Chunk 3, the plan takes shape. The idea doesn't fully crystallize until Monday morning, and it comes to me in the shower, which feels like the kind of cliche that would make Jake laugh if I told him. I'm standing under the spray, water too hot, and suddenly I'm thinking about Derek's face when he realizes I'm gone. Not just quit, but gone. Vanished right before bonus day with critical projects left hanging. I know what Derek's working on. Not in detail, he's careful about that, but enough. There's the Morrison account, which is worth a significant chunk of revenue and is supposed to close by the end of Q4. There's the internal restructuring proposal that Derek's been positioning as his baby for months, the one that's going to make him look visionary and forward-thinking to the C-suite. And there's whatever he's been pulling from me, the background work that makes him look competent, the ideas that become his when they're repeated in the right meeting. What I need to figure out is exactly how much of that work is actually his and how much is mine. I spend Tuesday and Wednesday in a strange state of performance. I go to work. I smile. I attend meetings. But mentally, I'm cataloging everything. I pay attention to what Derek's been assigned. I listen when he talks about his projects, and he does love to talk about them, especially when there's an audience. I notice that he mentions the Morrison account at least twice a day, always with this confident tone, like the entire thing is riding on his genius. But I also remember the email conversation from last month. The one where Derek forwarded me a client question about Morrison's Q3 numbers, asking me to pull together some analysis so he could review it for accuracy. I did 3 days of work on that analysis. Deep work. The kind that requires actually understanding the client's business model and market position. And then Derek took it, added a few of his own notes in a different font, and sent it back to the client under his name. I kept that email. It's in my personal folder at home, not on the company server. Dated, timestamped, with my original analysis clearly visible in the chain. Wednesday afternoon, something shifts. I'm in a meeting with Derek, Susan, and 2 of our colleagues, and Derek is presenting the current status of the Morrison account. He's talking about the strategy, the timeline, the expected deliverables. And he's doing it with such ease, such confidence, that if I didn't know better, I'd almost believe he'd done the work himself. But I do know better. And then Susan asks a specific question about one of the client's concerns, something about their expansion into the Northeast market. It's a detailed question, the kind that requires nuanced knowledge. I watch Derek's face go blank for just a moment. Not long. Maybe half a second. Just long enough for me to see that he doesn't actually know the answer. He recovers quickly, deflecting with a vague response about exploring options and circling back with the client. But that half second tells me everything I need to know. Derek isn't managing this account. He's managing me. And without me, he's empty. That's when the idea fully forms, and it's beautiful in its simplicity. I wait until Thursday. I'm not going to do anything dramatic or impulsive. I'm going to plan this carefully, methodically, the way Derek planned his betrayal. I'm going to give him enough rope to hang himself, and then I'm going to walk away and watch him fall. I start by doing something that feels counterintuitive. I become more helpful. I'm suddenly the most engaged, most available version of myself. When Derek asks me to pull together research for the Morrison account, I do it eagerly, asking detailed questions and offering insights. When he asks me to review documents, I'm thorough and thoughtful. I'm being such a good teammate that it's almost grotesque, but Derek just eats it up. He pats me on the back in the hallway. He tells me I'm really finding my footing here. I document every single thing. Friday morning, I do something bold. I schedule a meeting with Susan, just the 2 of us, and I ask her about my performance review. I tell her I'm interested in feedback, that I want to make sure I'm meeting expectations. Susan is taken aback. Performance reviews aren't until January, but she agrees to grab lunch with me. And over that lunch, I ask careful questions about my contributions, about how I'm being perceived in the department, about what she thinks my strengths and weaknesses are. Her answers are telling. She mentions that Derek has been really helpful in giving her context about my work. She says things like, Derek mentioned you're still getting up to speed, and Derek thinks you have potential if you keep developing. I don't correct her. I don't tell her that Derek is lying. Instead, I smile and say thank you and ask if there are specific projects where I could demonstrate my capabilities more directly. By Friday afternoon, I'm vibrating with a kind of nervous energy that I can barely contain. The plan is there, in my head, fully formed and terrifying. It requires me to do something that goes against every instinct I have about professional behavior. It requires me to be ruthless in a way I didn't think I was capable of. It requires me to wait until December 20th and then blow everything up. But not in the way I originally planned. I get home Friday night and pull out my laptop. I create a new email account, something anonymous, something that can't be traced back to me. And then I write an email to Susan. Not accusatory, not dramatic. Just factual. I lay out the timeline of the Morrison account work, attach copies of the original analysis with my name on it, show her the email chains where Derek took credit. I document the pattern of behavior across multiple projects. I'm methodical. I'm thorough. I'm irrefutable. I don't send it yet. I save it in drafts, the way I saved the resignation email. But this time, I know exactly when I'm going to send it. December 20th. Right before the bonuses are distributed. Right after I've quit. Right when Derek is at his most vulnerable, when his bonus is about to be announced, when he's about to celebrate his success. That's when I'm going to send the evidence to Susan. That's when I'm going to make sure she knows exactly what Derek did. Not to get revenge on him, exactly, though God knows I want that too, but because I can't let him keep doing this to people. I can't let him keep getting away with it. And then I'm going to walk away and start over somewhere else, somewhere better, somewhere that Derek can't reach. It's not the dramatic explosion I originally planned. It's something quieter, more surgical, more devastating. It's the kind of malicious compliance that doesn't come with a warning. Derek asked me to leave him alone so he could succeed. And I'm going to do exactly that. I'm just going to make sure he fails in the process. #Chunk4. The next week crawls by like something with broken legs. I keep my head down and my smile plastered on, which is harder than I expected. Every time I see Derek, every time he pats my shoulder and tells me I'm really stepping up, I have to physically stop myself from laughing or screaming. I haven't decided which yet. Monday morning, I get a text from my mom. Your aunt is asking how you're doing at work. Derek told her you're thriving. So proud of you both. I stare at that message for a long time. Derek told her. Of course he did. He's cultivating the narrative, building his image as the supportive older cousin who's helping me succeed. He's probably told her that he's been mentoring me, guiding me, handling my mistakes. The image of what he's probably said makes my stomach turn. I don't respond to my mom. I can't trust myself to be civil right now. By Tuesday, something else happens that I wasn't expecting. I'm sitting at my desk, finally making some headway on an actual project that Derek hasn't touched, a smaller client deliverable that's due in 2 weeks, when Jake slides his chair over and lowers his voice. Hey, can I ask you something weird, he says. My heart stops. Yeah, sure. Did you do the Morrison analysis? The one from last month? I feel the blood drain from my face, but I keep my expression neutral. Why would you ask that? Jake glances around, making sure no one's listening too closely. Because I was talking to someone from the Morrison team yesterday, a friend of mine who works in their marketing department, and he asked me if I knew the guy who did their Q3 analysis. He said it was really comprehensive, really insightful, and he wanted to know if that person would be a good fit for a larger project they're bringing in-house. I told him you did the work. I don't know what to say. This is a complication I wasn't prepared for. He seemed confused. Jake continues. He said that Derek introduced himself as the analyst who did the work. My friend was like, oh, really? Because the analysis was actually good. He didn't say it like that, but you know what I mean. Jake pauses. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy. You're not crazy, I say quietly. Jake's jaw clenches. That asshole. I knew something was off about him. He's got this way of making himself sound smarter than he is. But this is next level. He leans back in his chair. What are you going to do about it? This is the moment where everything could change. Jake is offering me an ally, a witness, maybe even someone who could corroborate what I'm doing. And I almost tell him. I almost say, I'm quitting on December 20th and I'm sending Susan all the evidence, and maybe he'd help me, maybe he'd make sure the whole thing stuck. But then I realize something. If I tell Jake, it's not malicious compliance anymore. It becomes a conspiracy. It becomes something that could get him in trouble, and I'm not going to do that to someone who's actually been kind to me. I don't know yet, I say, which is true in a technical sense. I do know, but not in a way I can explain to him. Jake watches me for a moment, like he's trying to figure out if I'm okay. Well, whatever you're thinking, I'm here for it. Derek's a snake, and someone should tell him so. After he leaves, I sit very still at my desk. The Morrison situation has escalated in a way I didn't anticipate. Derek didn't just take credit internally, he's taken credit with the client. That's different. That's bigger. That's the kind of thing that could actually matter to HR, to Susan, to the company's understanding of who Derek is and what he's done. It also means the stakes of my plan have changed. I'm not just exposing Derek to save future interns or junior employees. I'm exposing him because he's actively lying to clients about his capabilities. That's not vindictive, that's actually important. I tell myself this repeatedly between Tuesday and Wednesday. It helps. Wednesday, I get called into a meeting with Derek and Susan. My stomach bottoms out. I'm certain that somehow they know. Somehow my plan has been discovered before I've even implemented it. But when I sit down, Derek just smiles at me with that charming, predatory smile he reserves for when he thinks he's winning. We wanted to talk to you about the Morrison account, Susan says. Derek was just telling me about the incredible work you've been doing as his support on this project. We're thinking about bringing him on to handle some of the larger strategic accounts once the Morrison deal closes. We wanted to make sure you'd be okay with him stepping into that role. I watch Derek watch me. He's waiting to see if I'll be proud. If I'll be happy for him. If I'll congratulate him on his success. That sounds great, I say, and I mean it, just not in the way he thinks. After the meeting, Derek walks me back to my desk. He puts his hand on my shoulder. I know I don't say this enough, he says, but I really appreciate you. You're like the little brother I never had. I'm looking out for you, you know. Making sure you're set up to succeed. I look at his hand on my shoulder. I look at his face, which is so genuine in this moment, so practiced in its sincerity. And I feel something shift inside me. The anger is still there, it's not going anywhere, but underneath it is something else. Pity, maybe. Or clarity. Derek has no idea that in less than a week, I'm going to destroy the narrative he's built. He has no idea that the evidence I've collected is sitting in my drafts folder like a bomb with a timer. He has no idea that the person he thought he had wrapped around his finger is about to detonate his entire carefully constructed image. And that's what makes it perfect. Thanks for everything, I tell him, and I pull away. By Thursday, I've started saying goodbye without saying anything at all. I'm being extra nice to people I'll probably never see again. I'm wrapping up loose ends on projects that won't matter once I'm gone. I'm acting normal while I'm simultaneously dismantling my entire life at this company, one careful action at a time. 2 more days until the weekend. 2 more days of breathing the same air as Derek, of watching him plan his victory, of knowing exactly when and how I'm going to ruin it. I can wait. Chunk 5. Friday morning arrives like a verdict. I've spent the night staring at my ceiling, running through the timeline again and again. Today is December 19th, tomorrow is the bonus distribution day. Tomorrow is also when I'll submit my resignation letter and the evidence packet to Susan. I've rehearsed it 100 times in my head, the calm, professional way I'll walk into her office. The way I'll hand her the folder without shaking. The way I'll explain that I've decided to pursue other opportunities, effective immediately, but I wanted to make sure she had some important information before I go. I've even practiced saying it out loud in the bathroom, which is pathetic, but I need to know I won't cry. I need to know I won't sound angry or vindictive. I need to sound like someone who simply couldn't stay silent anymore. But this morning, something goes wrong. Derek texts me at 7:47 a.m., before I've even had coffee. Hey, can you swing by my place before work? I want to go over the Morrison presentation together. Susan wants us to tag team it for the client call next week. The Morrison presentation. The one I created. The one Derek has been taking credit for with a smile and a hand on my shoulder. I stare at the message for what feels like forever. This is a test, I think. This is the universe asking me if I actually have the courage to do this, or if I'm going to back down when it gets uncomfortable. If I'm going to let one last collaborative work session convince me that Derek is worth keeping around for. I text back, can't this morning. Running late. See you at the office. It's a lie, but a small one. A necessary one. When I get to the office, Derek is already at my desk, hovering over my chair like a vulture. His expression is frustrated, which is unusual. Derek is almost never frustrated. Derek is perpetually confident, perpetually in control. Where were you? He asks. Stopped for breakfast, I say, which is also a lie. I haven't been able to eat. My stomach has been in a permanent state of rebellion since Tuesday. I needed to talk to you about something, Derek says, and his tone makes my neck prickle with warning. Privately. We walk to one of the empty conference rooms on the south end of the office. Derek closes the door behind us with the kind of finality that makes my heart rate spike. This isn't right. He's not supposed to know. He's not supposed to be acting this way. What's going on? I ask, trying to keep my voice steady. Derek leans against the table. For the first time since I've known him, he looks genuinely uncertain. I had a call yesterday from a contact at Morrison, he says. One of the partners. He wanted to know if you were available for a direct consultation with their team on some of their analytical frameworks. I don't say anything. He said he specifically remembered you from the Q3 analysis, Derek continues. Said you had an interesting approach to their data structure. He was asking about bringing you in directly. Oh. Oh no. Derek, I start, but he holds up a hand. Let me finish, he says. His voice is quiet in a way that feels dangerous. I told him you were still pretty junior, that I'd been the primary analyst on that project, and that if you wanted strategic input, it would be better to work with me. He seemed confused by that. He said something like, well, he's the one who actually did the work, so I think he'd be the better choice. The room feels very small. So here's what I'm wondering, Derek says, and now there's an edge to his voice that I've never heard before. The charming mask is still there, but it's slipping. Are you planning to tell Susan something? Are you planning to go to her and say that I've been taking credit for your work? I open my mouth. I close it. Because if you are, Derek continues, I think you should know that I have emails. Lots of them. Emails where I asked you to do things, where I assigned you tasks, where I reviewed your work and approved it before it went to clients. Emails that show a clear supervisor-subordinate relationship where I was doing my job. Emails that make it pretty clear that you were just doing what you were asked to do. He's thought about this. Of course he's thought about this. Derek doesn't get to where he is without having a contingency plan. The Morrison thing, he says, was a miscommunication. I probably should have looped you in on that conversation. My bad. I can smooth it over with them. Say that we're a team, that you were instrumental but that you're still learning. That would actually make you look better, you know. Makes you seem like you're being developed properly. He's not threatening me directly, I realize. He's trying to convince me that we're not enemies. That this is all a misunderstanding that can be easily resolved if I just stay quiet. But if you go to Susan, Derek says softly, with accusations about me undermining you or sabotaging your work, I'm going to have to defend myself. And the thing is, I have documentation for basically everything. I covered my ass. Because that's what professionals do. My hands are shaking. I put them in my pockets. I'm not trying to threaten you, Derek says, and the tone is almost sincere. I'm trying to tell you that whatever you're planning, it's not going to work the way you think it is. You're going to look like an ungrateful junior employee who's trying to pull down the person who got him this job in the first place. Is that really how you want this to end? I think about my plan. I think about the emails I've collected, and yes, there are emails from Derek asking me to do the work, but there are also emails where he's deleted my name from drafts before sending them to Susan. There are timestamps on files. There are conversations I've documented. It's not as clean as I'd hoped, but it's not nothing. But now I'm wondering if it's enough. I'm wondering if Derek is right, if I'm going to end up looking like the villain in this story. I'm not asking you to like me, Derek says. I'm not even asking you to forgive me. But I am asking you to be smart about this. To think about your career, about what's best for you long term. Making an enemy out of someone more senior than you in this industry. That's how you become someone nobody wants to hire. He's playing his final card. He's trying to make me afraid. And the worst part is, it's working. Not because I believe him, but because he's just made me realize that quitting tomorrow without a backup plan might be the dumbest thing I could do. #Chunk6. I leave that conference room feeling like I've been hollowed out. Derek didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten me explicitly. He just laid out the facts as he sees them, and now my entire plan feels like it's made of tissue paper. All the careful preparation, all the documentation, all the righteous anger I've been storing up, it suddenly feels fragile and naive. I don't go back to my desk. Instead, I lock myself in a bathroom stall and try to remember how to breathe properly. The thing is, Derek isn't entirely wrong. I know how corporate dynamics work. I've been here long enough to see junior employees get blacklisted after conflicts with senior staff. I've seen resumes get quietly passed over. I've heard stories about people burning bridges and then wondering why no one will return their calls. And Derek? Derek is connected. He's been here 3 years longer than me. He has relationships with people in other departments, other companies. If he decides to make me look bad, he absolutely can. But he's also terrified. That's the thing that keeps running through my head as I sit on the toilet with my eyes closed. Derek wouldn't have called me into that room if he wasn't scared. He wouldn't have played the "I'm just trying to help you understand the reality of the situation" card if he was actually confident that his emails and documentation would protect him. He was trying to scare me into silence, which means some part of him knows he's vulnerable. I just need to figure out if I'm vulnerable too, or if I've actually collected enough evidence that it doesn't matter. I pull out my phone and start going through my files folder. I have screenshots. I have the email chain where Derek sent Susan a summary of the Q3 analysis results without mentioning my name. I have the message thread where I asked him to clarify my role on the Morrison project, and he gave me a vague non-answer. I have timestamps on the original data files showing when I created them. I have a Slack message from a colleague asking Derek about my contribution to the analytical framework, and Derek responding with something that made it sound like it was collaborative when it really wasn't. It's not a smoking gun. It's more like a bunch of circumstantial evidence that paints a picture if you're willing to look at it. The question is whether Susan will be willing to look, or whether she'll decide that this is a he said, she said situation that's too messy to untangle on a Friday morning before bonus day. Actually, wait. Before bonus day. I check the time. It's 9:43 a.m. The bonus distribution happens tomorrow morning. Derek gets his bonus distribution tomorrow morning, assuming nobody rocks the boat between now and then. If I go to Susan this afternoon with my evidence and my story, there's a decent chance she'll want to investigate before handing out money. There's a decent chance this will blow up in Derek's face exactly the way I planned. But there's also a decent chance that Derek will follow through on his implied threat. That he'll decide I'm a problem that needs to be managed, and he'll start working the phones, calling in favors, making sure that my name becomes synonymous with ingratitude and drama. I need to think about this differently. I need to think about what I actually want here. The original plan was revenge. It was about making Derek suffer the way he's made me suffer. It was about exposing him and watching his perfect image crack. It was about making sure he understood that you can't just treat people like that and get away with it. But that's a dangerous motivation. Derek just reminded me of that. If I'm coming from a place of anger and revenge, Susan will sense it. The board will sense it. And suddenly the narrative becomes disgruntled employee trying to drag down more senior colleague instead of junior employee reporting a pattern of workplace misconduct. I need to talk to someone. Not my parents, they'll side with Derek because he's family, because blood is thicker than water, because I should have just asked him for help if I was struggling. Not my friends from college, they don't understand the corporate world well enough to give me good advice. I need someone who actually knows how this stuff works. I think about Susan. I think about how she's always made time for me, how she's always seemed genuinely interested in my development. The question is whether that was real, or whether it was just her being a good manager. Whether she'll believe me when I tell her that the golden boy has been systematically undermining his own cousin. I pull up her calendar and check if she has any open slots this afternoon. She does. There's a 30-minute block at 4 p.m. before her end-of-day meeting. But before I book that, I need to talk to someone who can actually advise me on this. Someone who isn't emotionally invested in the outcome. I Google employment lawyer near me, and my hands are shaking as I do it. This is real now. This is the moment where I stop hypothetically planning revenge and start actually taking action that could have consequences. For Derek, yes, but also for me. For my career. For my relationship with my family. My mom will never forgive me if this blows up. My aunt will call me ungrateful and selfish. Derek will make sure everyone knows that I tried to destroy him to further my own career. And maybe I'm okay with that. Maybe I've decided that protecting myself from toxic people is worth the family fallout. Or maybe I haven't. Maybe I'm still hoping that there's a way to do this that doesn't burn everything down. I find a lawyer who specializes in employment law. She has availability for a consultation at 2 p.m. today. It costs $300, which I can't really afford, but suddenly it feels like the most important $300 I'll ever spend. I book the appointment. Then I sit in that bathroom stall for another 5 minutes, trying to figure out how I'm going to get through the rest of this day without Derek noticing that something is wrong. Trying to figure out how I'm going to sit at my desk and pretend to work on projects that don't matter, knowing that by this time tomorrow, everything could be different. The bathroom door opens. Someone comes in. I flush the toilet that I never used, wash my hands, and walk back out into the office like I haven't just made a decision that could change everything. Derek is at his desk when I pass. He looks at me with a question in his eyes, trying to gauge whether his message landed, whether I've been properly intimidated into submission. I don't give him anything. I just keep walking. #chunk 7. The employment lawyer's office is in a building downtown that smells like old carpet and broken dreams. Her name is Catherine, she's probably in her 50s, and she listens to my entire story without interrupting once. I've printed out my evidence, the screenshots, the email chains, the timeline I created 2 weeks ago when I was still convinced this was going to be simple. I spread it all across her desk like I'm laying out tarot cards, except instead of my future, I'm showing her documentation of professional sabotage. When I finish talking, Catherine leans back in her chair and removes her glasses. This is apparently the universal sign for bad news. Okay, she says. Here's what you have and what you don't have. You have a pattern. You have timestamps. You have evidence that your work was attributed to someone else. That's good. What you don't have is a smoking gun. You don't have Derek saying I'm going to take credit for her work to undermine her. You don't have him admitting to spreading rumors about you. What you have is circumstantial. But it's enough, right? I ask. To at least trigger an investigation. Maybe, Catherine says. Depends on your company's policies, your HR department, the receptiveness of your manager. But here's the thing you need to understand. If you go to your manager, Susan, did you say, with this complaint, you're putting yourself in a very specific position. You're the junior employee accusing a more senior colleague of sabotage. That's a bold move, and it requires you to be very, very careful about how you present it. What do you mean? I mean, Catherine says, leaning forward, that if this is framed as revenge or retaliation, if it comes across as emotional or vindictive, it will blow back on you. Susan needs to see you as someone who is professionally concerned about a workplace pattern, not someone who's angry at their cousin. The second she thinks this is personal, the narrative changes. So I just lie. No, Catherine says sharply. You tell the truth. But you tell it like a professional, not like someone who's been hurt. You stick to facts. You don't mention the family relationship unless it's directly relevant. You don't talk about how Derek made you feel. You talk about how his actions affected your work, your assignments, your professional development. You make it about the company's interests, not your revenge. The word revenge hangs in the air between us like a bad smell. What about the timing? I ask. He mentioned that quitting before bonus day would look retaliatory. Catherine nods slowly. He's not wrong. If you file a complaint and then quit, it looks like you're doing this because you're upset about money. If you file a complaint and stay, it looks like you're trying to fix a legitimate workplace problem. But here's the catch, and this is important. If you stay, you're staying in an environment with someone who just threatened you, implicitly or otherwise. That's not healthy. So what am I supposed to do? That depends on what you want, Catherine says. Do you want Derek to face consequences, or do you want to get out of this situation? I realize I don't have a good answer. The revenge fantasy was always just that, a fantasy. In reality, what I want is to not feel like an idiot. I want to be recognized for my work. I want Derek to understand that what he did was wrong. I want my family to see that he's not the golden boy they think he is. I want a lot of things that probably aren't actually achievable. If I file a complaint, I say slowly, what happens to me? Best case scenario. The company investigates, finds evidence of misconduct, Derek gets reprimanded or fired, and you stay in your job with your reputation intact. Worst case. The company decides it's too messy to deal with, Derek denies everything, nothing happens, and you're now the person who tried to get your cousin fired. Your working relationship becomes toxic. You probably end up leaving anyway. And middle case? Middle case is that they do investigate, find something but not enough to fire him, he gets a warning or a slap on the wrist, and you've made a powerful enemy out of someone who already knew how to undermine you. I feel something heavy settle in my chest. Catherine is being honest with me, and the honest version of this situation is much messier than the revenge narrative I've been constructing. Here's what I'd actually recommend, Catherine continues. Document everything from this moment forward. If Derek does anything else, any retaliation, any further attempts to take credit for your work, you document it immediately. Then you have two options, you can file a formal complaint and deal with the fallout, or you can use this documentation to protect yourself in future job searches and interviews. You can tell potential employers, I had a difficult working relationship with a senior colleague, and you have evidence to back up your side of the story if needed. So you're saying I should just let it go? I'm saying, Catherine says carefully, that revenge is a luxury you can't afford right now. You're 22. You have a long career ahead of you. Derek's actions suck, and they're unfair, but they're not actually going to destroy your life unless you let them. What would destroy your life is you doing something impulsive in anger that gets you blacklisted from the industry. She glances at the clock. We're running over time. She doesn't charge me for the extra minutes, which somehow makes me feel worse. One more thing, she says as I'm gathering my papers. That conversation with Derek in the conference room. The implicit threat he made about how people who burn bridges don't get hired elsewhere. That was also not great on his part. That sounded like witness intimidation or retaliation prevention. If you do decide to file a complaint, that conversation is actually relevant. You document it, and you mention it. I leave her office with more questions than answers, my phone buzzing with messages from work. Susan's calendar shows she's available at 4 p.m. Derek has sent me 2 emails asking for status updates on projects. My mother has texted asking if I want to come to family dinner on Sunday. I sit in my car in the parking garage and try to figure out who I want to be in this situation. The person who destroys Derek out of revenge, or the person who protects herself without burning down her entire life. The person who prioritizes family loyalty, or the person who prioritizes self-respect. The hardest part is realizing that I might not be able to do both. #Chunk8. I sit in my car for 20 minutes before I can move. My hands are shaking. Catherine's words keep cycling through my brain on repeat, revenge is a luxury you can't afford right now. She's right. I know she's right. But knowing something and accepting it are two different things. I pull up my email and look at Derek's messages. Can you send me the Q3 analytics breakdown? Need it for the executive meeting. Also need your input on the client retention proposal, where are we on that? He's treating me like nothing happened. Like he didn't just threaten me. Like he hasn't spent the last 6 months systematically undermining everything I do. My phone buzzes. A calendar invite from Susan, chat at 4 p.m., my office. It's 3:47. I could go in there and tell Susan everything. I could lay out the evidence, present the facts like a professional, and watch the dominoes fall. Catherine said there's maybe a 50-50 chance something actually happens to Derek, but there's definitely a guarantee that everything gets messier. My name becomes attached to this drama. I become the person who tattles on her cousin. I become difficult, emotional, someone with baggage. Or I could walk away. The thought hits me like a physical thing, I don't actually have to stay here. I don't have to fight for vindication. I don't have to prove Derek wrong or make my family see the truth. I can just leave. Start over. Build something new somewhere else where nobody knows my name or my family drama or any of this. For months, I've been operating under the assumption that I needed to stay and fix this situation. That quitting would look like defeat. That leaving would mean Derek won. But what if that's just another narrative Derek planted in my head? What if staying is actually the thing that defeats me? I make my decision. I drive back to the office and park. I walk into the building like someone who knows exactly what they're doing, even though my heart is thundering in my chest. I go straight to my desk, not Derek's, not Susan's. I start documenting everything, all the projects I've actually worked on, all the deliverables I've created, every piece of evidence of my actual contributions to this company. It takes me an hour. By the time I'm done, I have a comprehensive portfolio of my work over the last 6 months. Emails, drafts, timestamps, everything. I save it to my personal cloud drive. I email it to myself from my personal account with the subject line, documentation of work performed at, company name, month/year. Then I close my work laptop. At 3:55, I head to Susan's office. Derek is at a meeting, I watch him walk into the conference room with 2 executives as I pass. He doesn't see me. Susan's office is all minimalist furniture and inspirational quotes about synergy. She's wearing her serious meeting expression when I sit down. So, she says, Derek mentioned you seemed upset earlier. Everything okay? This is my moment. This is where I either fight or flee. Where I either try to convince Susan that Derek's been sabotaging me, or where I tell her something else entirely. Actually, I say, and my voice sounds steadier than I feel, I came to tell you I'm resigning, effective immediately. I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice, but I wanted to give you this personally and give you a chance to find coverage. Susan's expression shifts from confusion to concern to something that looks almost like sympathy. Oh. Okay. Is this about the workload? Because we could talk about. It's not about that, I say, and I'm surprised by how calm I sound. It's a personal decision. This job was my first corporate position, and it's been a learning experience. But I think I need to move on and explore other opportunities. She asks the follow-up questions people always ask. Am I unhappy? Is there something she can do? Is something happening with my coworkers? I answer carefully, the way Catherine taught me. I stick to broad statements about growth and new directions. I don't mention Derek. I don't mention the sabotage. I don't mention my cousin at all. What I do mention is that I'd like to document my current projects and create transition plans before I leave. Susan, looking relieved that I'm being professional about this, agrees immediately. Of course, she says. We appreciate your commitment to making this smooth. I nod and stand up. One more thing, Susan says as I'm leaving. Derek mentioned something about you being upset. About work dynamics. If there's anything you want to discuss on your way out, I'm happy to listen. I pause at the door. This is another moment where I could burn it all down. Where I could tell Susan everything. But Catherine's words echo again. If you file a complaint and then quit, it looks like you're doing this because you're upset about money. I appreciate that, I say. But I think this is just the right time for me to move on. The relief on Susan's face is almost palpable. She doesn't want to deal with drama. She just wants her transition plans and her 2 weeks. I leave her office and go back to my desk. Derek is still in his meeting. I spend the next 4 hours creating the most comprehensive, detailed transition documentation I possibly can. I document every project, every deadline, every dependency, every person involved in every decision. I make it beautiful and clear and impossible to misinterpret. I make it so that when Derek tries to take credit for any of it, there will be a paper trail proving exactly when and where and why I did the work. Then I send it all to Susan, Derek, and my direct supervisor. I CC myself for good measure. At 5:47 p.m., I pack up my personal desk items, a photo of my parents, a mug from college, the small succulent that somehow managed to survive in this fluorescent wasteland. Derek still hasn't come back to his desk. I send him one final email, transition all my projects per attached documentation. Good luck with the rollout. Then I shut down my computer, put my badge on my desk, and I walk out of the building. The thing about revenge narratives is that they always feel more satisfying in your head than they do in real life. I thought I'd feel triumphant or victorious or angry in a cathartic way. Instead, I just feel tired and oddly peaceful. Derek won't get fired. He probably won't even get reprimanded. The projects will get done because he's competent, even if he's a terrible person. My family will find out I quit and will probably choose to believe Derek's version of events. There will be awkward holidays for years. But I won't be there to watch it. I won't be stuck in that office, working for someone who hates me, alongside someone who sabotaged me, under a boss who doesn't care enough to notice what's happening around her. I drove home that evening with my windows down and my phone on Do Not Disturb. Derek could figure out his own mess for once. And for the first time in 6 months, I felt like myself again.